All right, here are my favorites that I sent to friends, family, and to clients on the week of June 28th through the 4th of July. So pretty fun time, and I had a variety of different things. I'll start out with a little pup chewing on some ice plant. I generally don't post most of these till later on social stuff, but they're kind of at that space now where mom has to go out and hunt and have enough calorie intake so that she can make enough milk to feed the little ones. So the little ones are left to their own devices for more of the day. And it's funny to see what they come up with. Just reminds me of kids everywhere. Definitely don't touch them, though. Don't go up next to them. Next shot, definitely not artistic, but again, another look at how large these males are compared to their harem of females. And then in this case, there's a little teeny guy up here sleeping, leaned up on the big male and mom. I liked this one. I found this relaxing. Details of the pelican's head. Shot at first light, there was a hole in the June gloom. It illuminated the water behind. Kind of gave it a nice golden glow. You can see the rail here, and then because I'm zoomed in, you can actually see through the rail, which is an interesting feature of telephoto lenses. Another pelican. This one I got a kick out of just because eyes are closed. You know, wasn't a lot of sun this morning, so he's eating up the little bit of sunshine that he can get. You can see there's not really anything else illuminated, but just kind of a relaxed pose. Sea lions leaping. This is actually one of my favorite things to shoot when they get excited and start really playing in the water. It was low tide, and they were actually playing quite close to shore. This shot I really liked. The sea lion's hidden here in the whitewash just as it's about to hit the sand. Cropped down a little bit. This has a very nice kind of balance through the composition, I thought. And it's another example of a wildlife photo that's not necessarily super wildlife centric. So it's sort of a 2-for-1 with that. I'm not sure if this was the same sea lion or a different one. There was a handful of them that were kind of running out just past the breaking waves and then surfing them back in and playing around all the way onto the sand. I got a kick out of this because kind of coming out of the back end of a dying wave right before the sand, and you got the water shapes and the foam. Another example of, sea lion surfing. His weight or her weight is making this indent, which is changing the water spray and splash. Here's another one all the way into the sandy shore. I liked this one. The arc of water I thought was good. The spray around it, how it's leaving its head exposed and a little bit of the body in the composition, but you still get a lot of details in the water movement. It is warm in my office today, so I apologize. Here's a look at flippers out, relaxed. One of the things that stood out to this, first off, I thought it was a good illustration of how big a sea lion's front flippers are comparative to, its head and its body. But I also liked in the composition, the water was coming up to, kind of its hind flippers. So it leaves the sand totally smooth on the upper section of the composition, while the lower section of the composition, you can see all the tracks and trails. I thought that added a dimension to this shot, which I really liked. Another look at the same one with a pelican landing in front of it. This is an intriguing composition to me, based on how the brown pelican's feathers sort of frame that sea lion's head, and that gives it just another extra dimension from that last one. Maybe you still got the wingspan. You've actually got the wingspan of the bird too, So you've got a couple more things going on in this one, depending on what you liked. This was just funny. I'd never seen this really before, but this stick, about 3 different pelicans played tug of war and took it from each other, and just that was their thing for a while, is who can grab the stick and pull it away from the other one and go walking into the group with this big stick. It was pretty funny. So I hadn't seen it before. I thought I got a kick out of it. Here is a offshore bottlenose. I had ramped up the shutter speed up to 1/5000th. Generally, I'm shooting kind of in the 2000, 2500. You can see on my blogs, I post all of that. I wanted to ramp it up a little bit to see if I was going to get any extra shapes that I should be paying more attention to in the water. And you definitely do. You figure 1/5000 is twice as fast as 2500, obviously. So, you know, you get a little bit more of the individual droplet details. In order to achieve that, I had to run the ISO up a little bit, but because these dolphins are taking up a decent chunk of the composition, that higher ISO doesn't necessarily negatively affect it quite as much as if they were small in the composition. So it's kind of a balancing act in how you get around that, depending on what you're looking to have. This one I liked. You know, you've got the exhaling bubbles, but you've also got the spray. Here's I think there were 7 in here. Common dolphins kind of sprinting. It was cool to watch. There was a bunch of them that were sprinting one direction, and the light was kind of doing funny things. So this was relatively low light, even though it was an afternoon trip. So it kind of has a different vibe. Same trip, a little bit later, the light had more or less come back, and these 3 guys decided that they were going to surf the wake in unison. And there's I think 3 or 4 shots that I really liked of this, depending on what you were looking for. You know, the balance and the unison or the sequential lineup of them was intriguing, so probably end up stopping on all of them. This is another one where you can see some of the differences in the dorsal fins. You've still got the arc of all 3. Another look. All of these are just sequence shots. Bam, bam, bam. So, you know, it's kind of a matter of taste of which one you like best. I kind of leave them all up there because, you know, depending on what you are looking for. Like this one with the dorsal on the top being more visible has kind of the strongest connection of lines, maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but this one stood out to me an awful lot. And then here was another one on when they jumped again. This one has a little bit more of that, you know, sequence shot all built into the fact that it's not a sequence shot. Again, usually I don't record these in the afternoon. My office is cooking. But look at the western gull, just, you know, seagull chick. It's starting to get its feathers onto its wing, where last week they kind of were more bare. These guys are pretty cute as little ones. They aren't quite as cute as adults to me, but who's to say? This was relatively funny. I'd never seen this before. These guys slept like this for about a half hour, and just the smallest pile you can have, you know, 2. Sea lion in front of the sign that says "Don't approach wildlife." This guy had come up onto the walkway, I guess the day before too. I saw him the next morning and texted some friends at the Seal Society, and they asked, well, are there still cones out there? So there was a couple cones. I coned him off, and when he moved, I coned him off again and gave him pretty big space on the cones, but he didn't really appreciate it, so he went back over onto the point. And then I walked back down towards the cove along here, and he actually followed me on the point. I hope I didn't make a sea lion enemy, but it's kind of fun. There's 3 shots here that are all comparing a harbor seal with a male sea lion. I waited a long time to try to get this shot, and the light wasn't super great, but it does do what I wanted it to do, and that shows the differences between these animals. The seals tend to live more at Children's Cove, and the sea lions stay more at or Children's Pool, and the sea lions stay more at the cove. They give each other a wide berth. It took a long time for this male to get anywhere near this harbor seal. So, grabbed a couple snaps of it. I think these will probably end up going to a couple schools that I send stuff to, and maybe we're talking about a kid's book right now too, so that might be fun. You can see the wounds here on the sea lion, and at first, because they were arced, I had one set of thoughts, but then when I really zoomed in, and the fresh ones, it looks like there's 3 distinct ones here, maybe a little teeny one down here, that seem really similar to where it's the word escapes me, but its biting teeth are. Sea lions aren't built to chew, they're built to grab and rip and tear. So I'm guessing that these are from battling with another male. It's a reminder not to go try to pet these things or something ridiculous. And then the third shot, a wave came over, knocked the seal around a little bit. Sea lion's flippers are tucked in underneath the water, but you can see the harbor seal's flippers and a little different. It's a good size variation too. This is a relatively big seal, and this is a relatively big male sea lion. Sea lion sleeping on the mooring buoy outside the bait barge in the basin. And then a minke whale. These guys are the second smallest baleen whales, and hadn't seen one in a minute, but yeah, they're very streamlined, and they're hard to kind of keep up with because they're a little bit unpredictable. Here's the same minke with a drone being flown by one of the captains over top of it, getting some footage. I liked this one. This one might end up on my site. I might Photoshop out the drone, but something about just everything being sort of anonymous, but the minke's fin and back being sort of sharp, and yeah, this one I found relaxing. Here's a shot. I can't remember if this was the minke or if this was a fin whale, because we saw him, I believe it was the fin whale. We saw it after the minke whale. But this is Adventure Whale Watching, one of their ribs. This is Captain Colleen. I've met her a few times. She's nice people. Everyone at Adventure is good people. They go out of the Big Bay in San Diego. And so I sent that over to them. You might have seen it on their social. It's a good reminder of scale and whatnot. And, how you really are right there with these little boats. Here's a shot of the fin whale with a cabin cruiser in the background. And this whale is a big whale. It's been offshore for a few days now, and they're guesstimating that it's well into the 80-foot range, and maybe 80 tons is kind of what I'm hearing. It was a big whale, and it's the first big fin whale I've seen in a minute out there. Another look at the kind of from the rostrum to the dorsal fin of this fin whale. As a idea of scale, these dorsal fins can be up to 3 feet tall. So they look relatively small because it's the ocean. It's hard to get scale, but you're talking about an absolutely enormous animal. Oh, is that? That might be that for the week. That or I'm clicking too many buttons. Yeah, so that wraps up the week of June 28th through July 4th. If you're on my website, check out all those settings. There might be some extra data down there that helps you in your photography or about these animals. If you're on any of the video hosting sites, I invite you to jump over to my site. I do link it in the text below. And so I look forward to doing this again next week, and thank you for the watch.